What's going on, college football fans? We are back. It's the First and Long College Football Show. We're ready to talk some college football. It is the 7th day of February. And as I said, we're back. We took us a little week off, much needed refresher after a long season, and then stumbling our way through the transfer portal, whatever that was.
It's a blender. That's what it was.
Yeah, it was a absolute just crab swirl of information over those couple of months, and I think we're all just kind of learning how to soak all that in and how to digest all that stuff, and here we are out on the final signing day, and we've got some awesome college football stuff to talk about. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Mason, how you doing today, man?
Man, doing good. Like you said, refreshed. It's like a week off from work. It is a week off from work in a lot of ways, but you come back and it's like, man, I'm ready to do some work again.
Chop it up, dude.
Yeah. There's
Ready
been
to chop this shit up, bro. Let's go.
Been a lot that's happened, and we're not going to get to all of it, but some things that might impact the season. And I think that those are the important ones to highlight right now.
Yeah. Well, college football dudes that are watching, what we're going to do, we do our live show every Wednesday at 7, as you can see there at the top of the screen, and we're going to try to stick to that schedule. But what we do on these live shows is this is kind of an opportunity for us to chit-chat with you guys. So put your comment in the comment section if you want to talk about something, or you got some commentary on something that we're talking about. And after we get done with the little clip segment that we're doing, we'll answer those comments and talk to you guys in the comment section. We love to do that stuff. And again, that's the whole reason we do it is to chit chat with you guys and chop it up college football style. And that's what we're going to do here today. Some of the things we're going to talk about today is the Tennessee situation. Are they in hot water, or is this just an NCAA fleck? We're going to talk about the Oregon Ducks and the Fighting Dan Lannings. As we said, the late signing day for recruiting has come to a close, or is coming to a close, I guess, here in the next few minutes. So we're going to talk about who won and who lost in the final signing day, and just the recruiting class in general. And then we're going to talk about the Pac-2. I've got an interesting story about the Pac-2, which is, if you don't know, that's Oregon State and Washington State and their grip that they've got on the college football playoff. I thought it was a pretty interesting story. And then we're going to finish up today with the hottest seats in college football. Whose ass is over the flame? We're going to talk about it here tonight. Thank you again so much for tuning in. All you guys that are watching, hit the thumbs up and like and subscribe and all that stuff, man. That helps us out so much. And we don't want you to miss a thing. Don't want you to miss a thing. Aerosmith style.
Sing it, baby.
Let's jump into Rocky Top. Oh, Rocky Top. Is Tennessee in hot water, or is this another NCAA flex, Mason? Because I guess really what we need to do is kind of let's dress out the story, because this whole thing kind of broke last week whenever we didn't meet up and we weren't talking college football for a week, which was weird. It had been a long time since we've done that, but so essentially there are some discrepancies in the NIL program with Tennessee. The everybody knows what name, image, and likeness is at this point. Apparently there was some kind of mishap that went on with Iamaleava, the quarterback that played in the Cheez-It Bowl here just a couple of months ago, and just the all-world rumor had it, $8 million quarterback, all this stuff. Apparently he rode on a private jet, and there was just some discrepancies about his recruitment and pay-for-play type of stuff. And that's really honestly about do you have something to add to that? Can you be more specific than that? Because I can't really be any more specific than that, to be honest.
I think you've done a better job of explaining it than the NCAA has. So,
well, yeah, there's not much common sense here in this situation, but I digress. Let's kind of dissect it. So Tennessee basically filed, the state of Tennessee, the AG, and the university filed for a restraining order against the NCAA. And about 24 to 48 hours ago, a court ruled in favor of the NCAA, saying that, they're not going to stop this investigation from going on. There's not going to be any no contact, none of that stuff. Nothing was basically done. The judge in the court, in the Eastern District Court of Tennessee, said, not granting you that. That's not necessary, basically, is what the judge said. Not necessary at this point because no one's been hurt. There's no losses here. All it is an investigation at this point. So I think we're going to have to wait just a little bit to figure out what exactly is going to come of this. But do you think the NCAA's got some teeth here? Or because if you listen to Danny White, the Tennessee athletic director, this is a wild goose chase as far as I'm concerned. This is a witch hunt. And I don't. Does the NCAA just have it out for Tennessee, or is there a cause for this problem here?
It does seem like that because this is the second time in about 3 years, I guess, that we don't count years as college football fans. We count seasons, right? We are in the 2024 season already. If y'all didn't know, as soon as January started, it's 2024 season. Anyways, this is the second time in 3 years that Tennessee has been targeted by the NCAA. Now, what's interesting is last time Tennessee had a coach that they weren't too much in favor of, so they just kind of bent over and said, "Yeah, we did do all this. Slap us on the wrist, Jamie Pruitt, you're out. We don't have to pay you. You did this, not us." Now you've got Josh Heupel in, and it seems like he's got the backing of the administration at Tennessee, and he is getting their support. They're going to battle for him, and they're trying to put a restraining order, and they're on the offense playing against the NCAA. So that's an interesting point of them having a target on their back. It's like an orange and white checkered target on Tennessee's back. It seems like that the NCAA is trying to beam down. But to me, what's more interesting is that Tennessee is fighting this because they believe in Josh Heupel, and I think that's an important part of this. To be honest, I don't get too much into the legal stuff when it comes to administrative issues that are going on between programs and the NCAA. But it's hard not to notice what's going on here and how it might affect the NCAA moving forward and how it might affect college football moving forward.
Yeah. So what I kind of understand about this is, as I said, the judge said there's nobody that is being negatively affected by this at this point. So therefore, there was no need for a restraining order, basically, against the NCAA. But I don't know if I totally agree with that. This obviously puts a dark cloud over the program, a program who just shook off a lot of this stuff. And as you said, they threw Jeremy Pruitt and his wife under the bus. I mean, there's no doubt about that. And you know what? Kind of rightfully so. I mean, they didn't do a very good job covering anything up. I mean, $75,000 out of the ATM down at the Citgo in Knoxville. I mean, that's just not smart. I'm sorry. That's just not a smart way to do things. So many would say that he had it coming, but this obviously has an effect on Tennessee because they're saying that there's not been any monetary damage done. But if there is monetary damage done to a recruit and the recruit is capped on how much they can make because of this situation, then they're going to have legal right to sue the NCAA at that point. So with all that being said, that's great. There is an avenue for things to get right. That's how the American judicial system works. I mean, there's a way for everybody to make it right and square. But man, that's a lot of hassle and a lot of money and a lot of problems for a college kid to be dealing with, right? Now I got to go sue the NCAA to get my money because I wanted to go to Tennessee. Kids aren't going to do that, man. This affects Tennessee negatively. Now, was there wrongdoing done on Tennessee's part? The way that Tennessee's acting, I feel kind of like there is, man, because this is a very defensive situation that they're in, and the way that Danny White has reacted to this thing, and not to mention the stories that I saw come out yesterday saying, well, look at Carson Beck. Carson Beck just bought a $300,000 Lamborghini. I don't understand what that has to do with Tennessee. I don't understand what Carson Beck, and what they're saying is that Carson Beck asked for $4 million to come back next year. don't know if that's true. There's no way for us to cross-check this stuff and cross-examine it, but he showed up and bought a Lambo truck
Mhm.
the other day, and everybody's like, well, obviously he got his $4 million, and I don't know. That's
Let,
not obvious. I mean, who knows?
let me
But
just say it's really interesting that he goes and gets this Lamborghini on the same weekend that Juju Lewis is on campus. Just saying,
yeah,
if I'm the best quarterback in a decade since Trevor Lawrence to come out, I might look a little bit closer at the program whose starting quarterback just bought a Lambo, and I
yeah,
got to see it, in person maybe.
right,
I just thought that was peculiar.
yeah, yeah. My whole point with it, and I agree with you 100%. I think that that's something that obviously Juju Smith or Juju Lewis is very interested in, is that type of lifestyle. Clearly, I mean, this
Mhm.
is a kid that is living in West Georgia and is talking about going to USC. So yeah, obviously the glitz and glam is a big deal for this guy, and he's probably going to be an NFL prospect. So that's every bit his right. He's a badass. Um, but kind of going back to the Tennessee thing, I don't know what the whole Carson Beck situation proves about Tennessee. I don't know what these two things have to do with one another. Um, they're saying that him asking for $4 million is pay for play. So we got to get to a point here where we know what's black and white and not so much gray area in college football. I mean, we're kind of stuck in the dark here, but nonetheless, it has made for some good um, some good stories and some good storylines in college football, no doubt about it. Let's kind of move into our next topic. If you don't have anything else on that subject, Mason.
No, I just think that at some point the can of worms is going to get open to where, and this will be my last point, but at some point the can of worms is going to get open to where it is in the open, right? It is well known that these high school recruits are coming in and getting paid right away, right? So they're coming in with a number in mind
Yeah,
of what to expect.
and
It's
that's
already
and that's pay
happening.
for play.
It's pay for play, but it's in particular it's um you're not supposed to use NIL to entice recruits, right? It's supposed to be something you earn and deserve after your performance on the field, but we all know that that's not happening, right? So that to me, that's my issue with the NCAA picking on Tennessee once again when there are programs who do this all over the country and they could have gone to any program other than maybe like an FCS school and they would have a reason to they would see some violations in some way if you really went through it with a fine tooth comb. It just seems to me like Tennessee is kind of at the forefront of it once again, and I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I don't get it either. Seems like it'd be something that you'd be definitely trying to avoid if you just went through it. And it seems, I don't know, and the NCAA coming out and saying, you know, we understand why Tennessee's mad, but then again, we've got schools over here asking us to do this,
Hmm.
saying that it's the Wild West out here and we got to do something. And then we try to do something and y'all are all on our ass. So I
Yeah.
see both sides of it. I see both sides of it. Or the NCAA rather is trying to make it as level of a playing field as possible, which is very hard to do in college football. It's never going to be fair for 130 teams. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
But I see both sides of it, and we're going to have to wait and see what becomes of this as the investigation continues. Um,
Well, I do want to say
uh-huh.
just to kind of get while we're on this point at least, because I know we're not going to talk about it at any other point in the show. You know, do you think that this NCAA violation, right, that Tennessee is accused of doing, is leading to, and the NCAA's investigation into this allegation? Do you think that that's leading to um, this committee that was formed, or it's not a committee, but this union that was formed between the SEC and the Big Ten? And do we think that that's eventually going to become one conference? I mean, we could go so many different directions with speculation on what this meant. But do you think that it was because of what's going on between the NCAA and
I
Tennessee?
I don't think that that's the sole cause, but I think it's situations like the one that's going on in Knoxville that have prompted these two power conferences to try to join some type of forces. I don't think they want to all join one conference. I think they I think they like the idea of a power two, and I'm kind of getting into something that I'm going to talk about here in just a little bit whenever we go through the 2024 recruiting coming to a close. But you had the Big 12 who closed out recruiting for 24 without not one team in the top 20 in recruiting. We are really beginning to see, and this year I think none of them finishing in the top 20 is going to cause a massive gap between, and I know it's not just one recruiting class, it takes cycles. No, there's players transferring out of that conference, and they're getting much less talent than the Big Two. So I think that's kind of what these two big power conferences are trying to do. They're trying to separate themselves from a Pac-2 situation that we have going on, and we're going to talk about that here in just a few minutes. They're trying to separate themselves from a Big 12 that wants nothing more than to have, that tier below conference. They're never going to be like the Big 10 or the SEC again. It's never going to happen. So I think you've got the ACC and the Big 12 that's going to kind of just follow suit, and you're going to almost kind of see, like in soccer, you got multiple levels of leagues, and it's almost like the Big 12 and the ACC has been relegated, right? That's essentially kind of what's going on in college football, like a relegation that just was kind of the result of all these power teams being able to become even more powerful and use their power, aka resources, aka money. So with all that being said, I think they do want to help serve each other in the way of, let's band together, and we're stronger together, and high tides rise all boats, and the Big Ten and the SEC are locked in arm step. They're going to be a thing. It's going to be a rivalry, but it's going to be also a almost like its own league, like a mini NFL. The AFC and NFC. I think that's what we're kind of going towards now. What do you think?
Gosh, you brought up relegation, and I don't know if we've talked about this, but I just love the idea of relegation in college football. I think that it takes so much of the human error out of it, out of picking who the top 25 are and this and that, and who's going to go to the playoff. I mean, golly, if we just went to a relegation system, right, where the top two of the Big Ten get to join the SEC, and the bottom two of the SEC go down to the Big Ten, and from the Big Ten to the ACC, you would have a drop, and of course you would have to change the names of these conferences, and you would, there would be differences. You can't have SEC and Big Ten if there's a relegation system. It would be, a Champions League and a series league, just like you see in soccer.
Yeah.
But I just love the idea of it, and I think that it would bring more attention to the sport than it's ever seen. But also, these conferences want to keep their power. I mean, and so we would never see it. But I love, in the off season, we can talk about stuff like this and kind of fantasize a little bit. And that's one that I fantasize about almost too much, about like I fantasize about the Roman Empire almost daily. Right. So it's a weird one, but I enjoy thinking about that, and dreaming about that. Maybe the NCAA, 2024 video game will have that option. I don't know. Maybe we could turn it on relegation mode. That'd be really cool.
Yeah, no kidding. No kidding. I can't wait to see some gameplay on that and get my hands on that game. I'm a 30-year-old man, but I'd be damned if I'm going to let that game come out and me not play it.
Hey, I'm gonna go ahead and tell y'all, I'm gonna be playing it on YouTube Live, and y'all can come get some of this. Come get some of this. The Ultimate Team is going to be coming. Y'all come on. Let's go.
Yeah.
I'm ready for it.
I got big into 2K basketball there for a little while. And dude, I went down a 2K basketball like rabbit hole on
Hmm.
PlayStation Live, dude. And if NCAA is coming back in this era of live, online sports, my God, I am I'm gonna be in hog heaven, dude. I'm gonna be in hog heaven.
I,
I can't wait.
I've been on a COD kick lately, just Call of Duty.
Yeah,
For whatever reason, the Modern
yeah.
Warfare 3 came out, and the nostalgia, just came out with it, because I used to play all the time when I had more time. Now I'm finding time, somehow to squeeze in a game here and there.
All these wars we got going on got you fired up, dog.
That's right. That's right. And so,
Gonna
but
be ready.
I get super sweaty. It's very competitive.
Your wife comes home like, "Why are you sweating?" I was just playing
Yeah.
COD.
Yeah. Pretty much. Pretty much.
I was just watching cops.
So y'all can come get some COD too now. Just hit me up in the comments.
Let's jump into our next topic here. Are the Oregon Ducks and Dan Lanning poised to take another step towards a title in 24 and 25? And this is a question I pose as a lean. I feel like Oregon's got some momentum, but then at the same time, I look at the roster and I'm thinking, okay, I still see a couple little spots here and there that are going to need to be addressed to go make an actual title run. But overall, man, I've got to say, I am super impressed with Dan Lanning, and I know it's said a lot, and obviously everybody else is too. I mean, the dude's on national TV making picks, but I'm just I'm in love with the path that he took. It's almost a Kirby Smart-esque path where it's like we were actually kind of talking about something before the show started on here, before we went live, and had nothing to do with this, but you were talking about somebody hiring somebody on potential alone, and that's essentially what Oregon did with Dan Lanning. I mean, this guy was hired. I mean, he'd been in college football a long time, obviously, seen some great programs, Alabama, Georgia, been around titles, all that good stuff. But this was a gamble. I mean, we see guys come out of Nick Saban and Kirby Smart programs that don't make it. Okay, it happens all the time. Head coaching's not for everybody. But Dan Lanning has just took the bull by the horns. He's recruiting. He's hitting the transfer portal, and on top of all that, he's winning now. Um, one thing that I saw this past week, we saw Bo Nix play in the Senior Bowl, and I think a lot of the thoughts that I had about Bo Nix when he was in college continue to be true. Um, I think he's a good quarterback. I don't think he's great. Okay. Um, if the Oregon Ducks can level up in quarterback play this year, and then overall just be as talented as they were last year, I think they got a really good shot to win the Big Ten, Mason. I think they got a really good shot, just as good a shot as anybody. It's going to come down to that Ohio State game on that schedule, and I'll pull the schedule up here in a minute and we can talk about it, but they've got a path to win the Big Ten the very first year that they're there. What do you think about that?
I think you're completely right. Going back to Dan Lanning, he's so relatable, it feels like, right? And maybe it's because we're somewhat close in age. I think he's 36, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah.
38, maybe 36, somewhere in that range. I'm 32. I'll be 33 this year. And, seeing his path, like you mentioned, where he wasn't really a successful college player and kind of worked his way up, through the ranks, and was hired on at Oregon. And I thought it was interesting. I heard an interview this week with him, and when he was interviewing with Oregon, he said, he told the administration there, he said, look, y'all can go hire somebody who's been coaching for a long time and maybe has won a bunch, but college football is changing. Wouldn't
Yeah.
you rather have someone who is young and can grow with the times and isn't established and, is still learning and things, and is very fluid in their coaching, methods and can change things up. And that's exactly what we've seen from him. He's been very honest and very vocal about how he made some mistakes last year, specifically against Washington. So um, I think that he's an excellent coach. I think that he's recruiting at such a high level, and you're completely right. I think that in the Big Ten this year, there's a tier one, which is Ohio State at one, Oregon at two. I think it's pretty clear that based on roster and coaching staff and everything, I think it's pretty clear that Ohio State's a little bit ahead of Oregon right now. But there's not another team other than Oregon that can beat Ohio State in the Big Ten, I think, with any reasonable odds in the 2024 season. You look at Michigan, they've they're returning a lot on defense, really, but they've lost a ton on offense, and they've lost a lot of their coaching staff. And they've got the toughest schedule that we've seen them have in a decade. So I think that all of those things will kind of play itself out, and I think that Michigan's going to have a pretty tough season this year. There's not another team certainly that's coming over with the type of momentum that Oregon is. I would have said Washington had Kalen DeBoer stayed, but with all the change that's going on there, I can't really put Washington in that mix. So to me, there's a significant drop off between tier one of Ohio State and Oregon and everybody else. I think that's the matchup to watch this year in the Big Ten.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, so I'm just looking here at this Ohio State schedule, and I don't think I think we're headed towards an Oregon Ohio State clash, and they're going to play in the regular season, and it's going to be in Eugene, and I think that game's going to go a long way in deciding who's going to represent the Big Ten in the Big Ten championship game in Indianapolis. Now, like I said, Ohio State's schedule doesn't seem a whole lot harder to me now that I look at it. I'm not seeing where they pick up one of the new. I see they got Oregon, but I don't see USC on here. I don't see UCLA on here. So I think it's going to come down to those two teams. Now, we do have some coaching changes at Oregon that I wanted to kind of go over here for just a second. So you've got Will Stein as offensive coordinator, who was just pictured there just a second ago. And then the Tosh Lupoy, he's the defensive coordinator, came from, I think, the Jags in the NFL. And he was there last year, so he'll continue to grow with that defense. But you got Chris Hampton added as co-defensive coordinator, and Junior Adams that is added as co-offensive coordinator. So those will be some names to kind of watch out for this year and see how they do and how things continue to progress for the Oregon Ducks. But the addition of Evan Stewart as well. I mean, they needed somebody to replace Troy Franklin. Bam, taken care of. Bucky Irvin is coming back, right? I think he's coming back. Or is he? No, is he going to the NFL?
I don't recall seeing him in like the Senior Bowl or anything.
I think
he may have sat out for, but
I think he's coming back. And you're going to pick up Dylan Gabriel at quarterback. You pick up a badass backup quarterback. I like this team. You need a big ass run stopper in the middle. You need a guy that can absorb blocks in this defense. This is the Georgia defense brought out to the West Coast. That's what they're trying to run. That's the program they're trying to implement. Same as Alabama, same as Georgia. Those teams have record-setting defenses when they have a Jalen Carter in the middle, a Mount Cody in the middle. The other big number 99 big boy, Jordan Davis. That's whenever these defenses are extremely successful in championship caliber games and the regular season. I think Oregon needs to address that. But with that schedule, they've got Ohio State at home this year. They do have to go to Michigan, but Michigan continues to lose. They lost Jesse Minner. They've lost their offensive coordinator becomes their head coach. They lost several players, lost their quarterback, lost both their running backs. So gonna be a bit of a rebuild, I believe, for Michigan this year. It's wide open, man. It's wide open, and I think Oregon is, barring gruesome injury or something, I think they're a lock for the 12-team playoff this year, as of right
Yeah,
now.
I
Now,
agree. I
we
agree
haven't done spring
completely.
football yet, so we gotta. But if I was making a ranking right now, they're probably in the top 6, don't you think?
I think so. And just to be clear for everybody at home, Bucky Irvin is entering the draft. Actually, he
Okay,
decided to. He played in their bowl game, but he's going to the draft. So,
okay.
which is a little bit interesting. I think that they've got some good pieces. Jordan James, I think, is a better running back than Bucky Irvin personally.
Wow.
But they've got to have somebody outside of him. I was trying to scroll through. They
It's
did
one
get
of
a
the most
transfer come in.
interesting teams to watch in the spring for sure.
Yeah, yeah, they do bring in a transfer from Northwest Missouri State, Jay Harris, running back, 6'2", 215, good size on him. He was a unrated recruit coming out of high school and ended up being a 3-star there. So a guy who's trending upwards, which is what you like if you're getting someone out of a JUCO route like this. So maybe some potential there. Obviously, good size, but
You know what they say about
maybe
those
he's the
guys
answer.
from Northwest Missouri State, right?
What's that?
Oh, I don't. I was hoping you knew. I
Oh,
haven't heard anybody come from there ever.
no, didn't know that was a school.
Did not know that was the school. So,
Yeah.
yeah, no. I look. You don't know where these guys are going to come from. I mean, you don't. You have no idea. So I joke and I kid, but uh,
But
I trust that Dan Lanning is going to have put a good team out there, and I really am going to look closely at this team come springtime. I want to see that offensive line, and I want to see that defensive line. That's where I
right.
think this team needs to improve.
I agree. And, they do bring in Houston transfer Jamari Caldwell, another guy who was unranked. And as a transfer portal player, he's a 4-star, right? That's a pretty good, movement upward. So I think that he's one that can fill that defensive line spot. And then also one that kind of slid up under the radar with all the other news that was going on. But Jabbar Muhammad, cornerback out of
Mm,
Washington. Um,
yeah, I like him a lot, Mason.
He's really, really good.
Yeah, yeah,
And I think he's another guy that's trending up. He's a lockdown corner, and I think that he's probably the most impactful transfer player that they have, and that says a lot when you've got Dylan Gabriel coming in to play quarterback and Evan Stewart, who's going to be his pass catcher. So, but I don't sleep on Jabbar Muhammad. I think he's an excellent grab, and also on the other side, out of UTSA, they got Cam Alexander, another big lockdown corner. So they sure up on the outside. I'm sure that part of their thinking was we're about to go face Ohio State, right? The best wide receivers in college football. Let's get our secondary straight, right?
yeah,
On top of that, they go and get a safety. Let's see. Aaron Flowers is a guy out of Forney, Texas, who's projected to come in and play right away. He's 6 foot 200, 4-star. One of their is really their best recruit overall in this class, I would say, given that Gatlin Bear, the 5-star wide receiver that they got just a couple of days ago, he's probably not going to play in the 2024 season. He's going to
yeah,
go on a mission trip, but I think that Aaron Flowers is going to step in right away and shore up that secondary. So a lot of that back end of that defense is going to be shored up. And then they get some pieces on offense as well. It's just this incoming class, both transfer portal and recruiting, they just got the right pieces. It seems like
yeah,
of the puzzle to make things work. And I didn't mention a couple of offensive line players as well. It's just a really good class coming in, number 4 in the recruiting cycle overall. And I think that's where Dan Lanning is going to live at out in Eugene, and with those NIL dollars from Nike, being a Nike school and all, they're going to do really well moving forward in recruiting and in the transfer portal.
yeah, yeah. As I said, team to watch for sure as the spring goes on, and see how all those pieces fit together. It sure does seem like they're putting together a nice little puzzle there in Eugene as they go into the Big Ten for the 2024 season. Speaking of 2024, let's talk about the recruiting coming to a close and who won and who lost the final signing day. Well, everybody saw Terry. Is it Bussey or Busey?
Bussy.
Terry.
He's
I say
bussing. He's bussing, man.
he's bussing. So he goes and signs with Texas A&M. He's a Texas guy. I think everybody kind of saw this one coming. From what I understand, he's going to be playing defense at Texas A&M. He's going to be playing in the secondary. This was a guy who was a 5-star athlete, which means he could play multiple positions. He played both ways in high school, and it was thought that he could step in and play receiver at any school or secondary at any school, period. Big pickup for Texas A&M. What do you think about the Bussey announcement? And as a Georgia fan, selfishly, I was just praying that Kirby was going to pull out some smart magic. But it wasn't to be with this one, as it was to the Texas A&M Aggies, and they continue with the momentum that they've got on the recruiting trail and everywhere else, pretty much.
Yeah, I think that you're still seeing the benefit of Texas A&M being early in that coaching carousel. You know, they're able to go in and establish relationships with the recruits that they already had committed and go and establish relationships with transfer portal players that they didn't have a relationship with, or maybe Mike Elko didn't have a relationship with, and kind of pull together a pretty solid class. Whereas, you know, Kalen DeBoer at Alabama, for instance, is struggling to kind of do that in some ways. He did have a big win with Ryan Williams this signing day. I thought that was huge for the Alabama Crimson Tide. But for Texas A&M, you know, they're getting from all accounts a super athletic player, but he's only about 5'10", at about 185 pounds. So not the biggest, but my understanding is that his play is really big. He's a guy who can play anywhere, do anything, like a 4-sport athlete in high school, just an absolute stud, super athletic, and he's going to be fun to watch. This was a huge win for Texas A&M. I don't know that Georgia was ever really into it. It seemed like if he was going to go to another school, it would have been LSU, but you know, I don't think that LSU is necessarily a loser because they didn't get Bussey. You know, he would have helped their class out, but it would have been a bigger loss for Texas A&M than it was a loss for LSU. LSU pulls in a fantastic class, I thought, you know, and they ended up 4th in the SEC, which isn't exactly great, but when you're behind Georgia, Alabama, and Texas, you know, that doesn't sound so bad either. So I think that this was a successful class for LSU as well, but a huge win on National Signing Day, the biggest win of the day for Mike Elko and Texas A&M.
Yeah, and a few other teams. Florida State picks up Amari Williams today, the number 225 linebacker in the ESPN 300. So that was a nice pickup today. Texas A&M signs wide receiver Ashton Bethel Roman. How about that name? Ashton Bethel Roman.
I think he's Christian.
Yeah, possibly has some Christian descent.
Maybe Catholic. That sounds like a super Catholic name.
Yeah, dude. He said a lot of Hail Marys, bro.
Yeah.
But all in all, Georgia ends up with the number 1 class, Alabama number 2, 3 Ohio State, 4 Oregon, 5 Texas. That's as far as the ESPN ratings go. LSU picks up Dominic McKinley. You had kind of spoke on the Oregon wide receiver. What was his name? Blair something?
Mm-hmm. Gatlin Blair.
Gatlin Blair. Yeah.
Gatlin. That's a new one.
Yeah, yeah. His grandpa, great grandpa, made the Gatlin gun, and that's
okay.
Yeah.
Well, it all makes sense.
I made that up, but that would be cool though. That would be pretty cool. Look, anytime there's a white badass wide receiver, I'm like, wow, look at that guy, you know. But and he ran track. I mean, he was whooping ass in track. I mean, so that's a smart player, dude. Smart player.
Really heads up guy there.
Heads up. He's not going to contribute this year, but that was a big pickup for Oregon. You spoke about Alabama picking up the 5-star wide receiver there. I think that was a big deal. Alabama still ends up with a really, really nice class. So all in all, I think DeBoer did a decent job, hold talent that they were already planning on signing, especially considering how late in the cycle it was whenever he figured out that he'd be moving over from Washington. So, and we continue to really not know, excuse me, if Ryan Grubb is going to be going to the NFL. So we're still trying to figure that situation out. Alabama may be without an offensive coordinator here shortly. Ohio State may be without an offensive coordinator here shortly. That's not a topic that we set up in the show to talk about today, but apparently Bill O'Brien is in pretty much down to the details with Boston College to be their next head coach, as their head coach, who was in our hot seat list, he ended up taking off to the NFL. So Bill O'Brien, being a Boston guy, that's going to be a job that it looks like he's going to take. So we are not even done with all the coaching carousel stuff. So we're signing talent, and these guys don't even know who they're playing for. You know, the whole schedule of college football is completely off. It is just completely off. We're going to need to start these seasons in August, early August, to get everything done by the time the end of the semester, because in college football, you got something you deal with in this sport that you don't deal with in other sports, and that's semesters. And that stuff's important. These kids still have to go to school. You have to go to school to play there. So we've got to figure out the timing of all this stuff, because it's not fair to the kids. And now if Ryan Grubb leaves, or somebody leaves the school, now they've got another open window, to transfer. And it's just like, my goodness gracious, dude. It's hard to keep up with, and it seems very sloppy and disorganized. But maybe that's how college fans like it. I don't know. You let us know in the comment section what you think. Anything else on Oregon, Mason? Or excuse me, on the recruiting stuff before we kind of close that down for a little while? This will be the last time we talk recruiting for a little bit, unless there's just a massive shakeup or flip / decommitment, right?
Right. And I just want to kind of drive home the point that Alabama retained Ryan Williams, right? This is a massive recruit. He's constantly compared to Devontae Smith, similar build, a little bit taller, but 165 pounds, about the same size. And he's got that twitchiness, and everything about him reminds me of Devontae Smith. And I just think that this is a huge get for Kalen DeBoer at Alabama as he begins his Crimson Tide era. This is what you need. This is a player who comes in and kind of rounds this class out after losing a bunch in the transfer portal, of course. But this is by far the most talented roster that Kalen DeBoer will ever have, and he brings in the number 2 overall class. I just think that you really need to pay attention to Alabama now. And I know that I've kind of flip-flopped on Kalen DeBoer a little bit as to what I think of the hire for Alabama, but it's starting to look like a pretty dang good hire. I mean, you saw what he did at Washington in 2 seasons with players who he didn't recruit. Now he's going to come in and immediately upgrade his roster. I think a big key, though, to this is Ryan Grubb, like you mentioned. Is he going to go to the NFL? Because if he does, that changes everything. Look, Kalen DeBoer has come up with his guys at every single step. He's brought his own coaching staff with him everywhere he's gone, like a lot of coaches do. But I think that it's really important that Ryan Grubb come and coach at Alabama.
Yeah, I think it's important as well. And Alabama, I think, signed the second most top 300 recruits in this class behind Georgia.
Mm-hmm.
In I think it was 18 of them, 16 of them, something like that. I mean,
lots
of talent. Huh?
18. Georgia 18. Had 21.
Right. There's tons of talent in this class. Is it an upgrade? I don't know that it's an upgrade, because, I mean, what they lost. I don't think – I don't – but my point is, it doesn't need to upgrade. The Alabama talent level doesn't have to get better. And DeBoer is a coach that is known for doing more with less. What is
Yeah.
he going to do more? What is he going to do when he has more talent than he's ever had? That's really kind of the question. But in that same breath, he's going to play the hardest schedule he's ever seen in his life.
Mhm. They had a lot of games that they would have lost if they were in the SEC this past year,
Absolutely.
you know?
Absolutely.
And not just saying with that roster, but I'm saying from a coaching standpoint, I thought that there were a lot of mistakes that were made, you know,
Yeah.
in Washington season last year in the Pac-12. You try to make those same mistakes in the SEC, you're probably going to get your lunch eaten. So,
Yeah.
I think that he's still got to develop, but I also think that this is a guy, like you said, who has done a lot with very little, and now you're going to walk into a wealth of talent. I'm really anxious to see what he does. Not necessarily this year, but uh, year two. I think that you can circle year two and say, yeah, they should be competing again in the SEC.
Well, and he comes in the right year too, because even if he doesn't win the SEC and loses a couple of games, got a very good chance of going to the college football playoff still. So
And
I,
by the
I
end of the
think,
year, I mean that roster is going to look completely different. You know, people are
yeah,
the team is going to understand what they're trying to do and the concepts of on offense and defense. It's a lot different. It's a new ball game, I think, once the playoff rolls around in a 12-team format.
yeah, I totally agree. I totally agree. Um, let's kind of go on to our next subject here. Thank you all very much for watching, and help us out by liking the video and drop us a comment and tell us, hey, kiss your foot or something. We don't really care. We'll we'll kiss your feet through the comment section. We don't mind. We
Oh,
don't
I
really
thought you
mind.
meant like we need to kiss our own feet on air. It's like, well, I mean, you may not care, but I can't do that. Um, I will tear
Dude,
a hip bone or a hip muscle or something.
dude, I am so not flexible. That shit is not happening. Like, I can't even touch my toes. So, uh, we, all that PE classes in that public education here in the state of Georgia did me no good because, and all the sports I played, it's all out the window, dude. I mean, uh, I coach a basketball team on Thursdays and Fridays, uh, fifth and sixth graders, and let me tell you what, when I'm out there with those fifth and sixth graders, I feel like I still have it. I'm
Yeah.
just swatting their shit. Get that out of here. I don't take it easy on them. I go really hard, you know. Um, and I feel like a man out there. But the other day, the ball got stuck on the rim, and it was in a game. And so I go walking out to the middle of the court, and then I get about halfway out there, and I'm like, "What am I doing? What am I about to do with this?
I ain't getting
What?
that ball.
I can't get that.
Who's
I'm
got a
already,
broomstick?
dude. I'm already at half court. I don't know
Yeah.
what made my body do that. There's everybody. It's a game. We're in the middle of a game, and so then it's just like, well, I guess I'm getting this thing, and so I ran up there, dude, and I luckily I guess my adrenaline was going pretty good. My left hand was strong enough to be able to grab the net and pull myself up with one hand and smack the ball, and it looked a little bit athletic.
Yeah.
Like this white guy can't touch the rim. They play on a 10-foot goal. Obviously, I'm not gonna just go up there and smack the ball, dude. But I ran up there and it kind of looked like a G, bro. I don't know.
Well,
I told my everybody, all the family that was there and stuff. It's like, yeah, I had it. I knew what I was, dude. I was
meanwhile,
scared to
you've got
death.
like a torn rotator cuff
Oh
from
yeah, I'm
pulling
sore
yourself
the next
up.
day.
Yeah.
My lat is sore from the one pull up that I did to
I
grab the
thought
ball.
I was just, I was hopeful that this wasn't going to turn into a Tom Segura story, where he goes and plays basketball and I don't know if you've seen the video, but he goes he goes in for a layup or to like try to dunk or something and falls and breaks his femur bone and his arm at the same time and just like falls on the concrete and everybody's like, "Oh my god," it was very gruesome, and I don't recommend anybody watch that video. But it's true that
Uh,
men after 40, which I know we're not there yet, but after 40, you probably shouldn't be playing basketball because
yeah,
that's where most of the injuries occur for men is on the
yeah.
basketball court.
Yeah, the most athletic thing that I do pretty much is run a chainsaw every once in a while at the hunting property, or the athletic move that I make when I hop up onto my tractor. Um, that's
A
about it.
chainsaw, running a chainsaw right now, it just feels super uncomfortable. Like thinking about it makes my titties jump, and it just makes me feel really self-conscious. I don't know why.
Oh, dude, I ran it for 2 hours yesterday, and I'm just like supposed to go back today to work. I'm just like, I'm not gonna make it, guys. I'm not gonna make it. My hands hurt. I'm a P word, dude. I'm too old for this shit. Let's keep it moving, man. Again, thank you all so much for watching. Let's go into our next clip. So, I was reading a story about the Pac-2 yesterday, and I was wondering how this situation was going to unfold with the college football playoff, the automatic bids, the Pac-2. Everybody knows how the Pac-12 couldn't get a media rights deal done because they're just inept, and um, all the teams left, other than Oregon State and Washington State. So, with the new playoff structure, as most people know, and if you don't, I'll explain. The conference champion of each Power Five conference is guaranteed a top 6 seed in the college football playoff. And then that one extra seed goes to the top ranked at large non Power 5 team. Okay. But all that was contracted and made a thing before we knew that the Pac 12 was going to become the Pac 2. Well, on the day of the national championship game, the college football playoff committee met up, and I think it was going to be one of those situations where everybody was ready to try to vote on whether or not they were going to be able to have any say so, or if the Pac-12 was really a conference at this point. And due to the contract, you're not going to be able to tell Washington State and Oregon State that they're not a conference, a Power 5 conference. They're going to hold on to this. With all that being said, the president of Washington State, and I know his last name is Schultz. Scholes. Let me pull it up here. Kirk Scholes is the president of Washington State. He just so happens to be on the playoff committee. So
it's convenient.
He controls a vote, and to take a conference out of the automatic seeding, you have to have a unanimous vote. And so there is a 0% chance that this guy at Washington State, who's the president of an organization that's about to make all that Pac-12 money, by the way, them and Oregon State are just going to split it the next 2 years. There is no way they're going to cede their bid to these other conferences. It's just not going to happen. So now we're in a situation where I don't even understand who Washington State and Oregon State are going to play. Who are they going to play? I don't even know.
Yeah, they do have a weird agreement with the Big 12 where they'll play each other, of course, and then they'll just be kind of doing non-con games with the Big 12, and that's going to decide who their champion is, I guess. I'm not sure how like the conference championship will work, but I know that their regular season is it incorporates the Big 12 more than anything. They're basically Big 12 teams.
Yeah. Well, here we are, and we've got the college football playoff stuck in the mud again. So wheels are spinning. We're stuck in this perpetual state for probably the next 2 years, as these teams collect their money and collect their college football playoff bid. So are we going to have a situation where we've got an easy dub on the board for whoever's playing the 5th or 6th ranked college football playoff ranked team? What's your thoughts on this? And this is not good for quality control as far as the college football playoff is concerned. We're going to leave out a good team to put in a really shitty team, is what I'm saying.
Right. And I don't know. I think that we could see an instance where the vote comes out and things do change. I think that there could be this guy Schultz could end up being a sensible person, right? And say, hey, I have a responsibility as part of this committee to do what's best for college football, not what's best for Washington State. I think that I don't think that's unreasonable to ask, right? Humanly, I think that that would be the ethical thing to do. So perhaps there's we can restore faith in humanity if Schultz is able to make the right decision here. But obviously, there's also the reality that humans are selfish, and we may not get that.
Yeah, and what would you be thinking if you're Washington State's board of directors
Oof.
and your president just gave away literally millions of dollars,
Yeah.
and here you are? This is a get rich as hell quick scheme for Washington State.
Mm-hmm.
I get what you're saying. The right thing for college football would be for them to bow out. But
he would be fine. Like he would get hired again as a president. You know what I mean? Like you jumped on the grenade for the rest of the platoon. Like you're gonna get a Medal of Honor. So I don't know. To me, I think if you go that route and you say, all right, he doesn't vote to disband the Pac-2, and things stay the way they are for 2 years. Like what's the difference, right? The Pac-2 getting a team in, or the FCS getting a team in, right? Like I don't know that there's much of a difference there. So I think that ultimately what I would like to see is for college football to say, hey, we're just going to get the top 12 teams. We don't care where they come from. Like,
yeah,
top 4 seeded will get a bye. But this whole conference champion stuff, I don't buy it. I don't believe in it. I want to see the most competitive teams and the most competitive games.
yeah. Well, I totally 100% agree with you. But each conference will receive $300,000 for each of its schools that meets the requirements for participation in the postseason game, in each postseason game. And then the conference receives $6 million for each team that's selected for a semifinal game. So when you're sitting here talking about, and then if they make it to the playoff semifinal, each team gets another 2.85 million. So, I mean, my God, you can't turn that down.
Yeah.
I mean, you just cannot turn that down. I mean, as I run a business, you work in business. You're a sales guy. You know numbers. If you cost your business 7 figures, there's going to be some people with some stank walking around about you.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and that's business in general. There's always going to be people that don't like you, and I'm sure that Kirk Schultz is I'm sure not everybody likes the president of the university, but you can't give that money up, especially whenever you're in a time of turmoil and don't know what the hell which way is up. And they've got college football held at gunpoint right this second. And unless he gives this vote away, there's no chance that we're going to have the real 12 teams. Like you said, I want the 12 best teams in there. This is why whenever we came up with this program, I was not in favor of this automatic bid system. What if something changes? What if the Pac-12 is horrible one year? Really was what I was thinking. I had no way to know that it was going to go down to 2 teams. But I'm thinking, if you take away last year, the Pac-12 has been really shitty for years and years and years. So for the most part, since USC's run, right? So it's like, what if they have a really shitty year? And so we're just going to automatically give them a top bid? Because, I never liked that. And I always thought that the SEC and the Big Ten were doing themselves a disservice because the third best team in the Big Ten is undoubtedly going to be better than the first place team in the Big 12. I'm sorry. It just is.
Mm-hmm.
That's where we are in college football at this point. So these automatic bids have got to go away. They've got to go away. They've got to do away with this stuff. But I'm afraid that we're going to be stuck here for a little while because, I have hope for humanity as well, that people will do the right thing, and there's no way that Washington State is walking away from this money in a time like this. They're going to continue to collect those checks, and then not to mention everything that goes into the coffers for the Pac-2 whenever it shuts down, divided up, they get the money. So we're kind of in a situation where I think we're kind of stuck. You got anything else on this before we get to hot seats?
No, let's get into it.
Let's do it, man. Um, let's kind of go through our hot seat for the year. And we just talked about one of these teams. What coach has the hottest seat in college football going into the season? And I looked up several lists to do this segment here and just kind of comparing what everybody else was thinking on this. And Lincoln Riley was number one on one of these lists that I looked at. What do you think? Is Lincoln Riley in? Is it possible he could lose his job in 24-25 season?
I don't think so. I
Yeah.
think that's a little bit silly. I mean, not saying he's done a great job, but who else? He just seems like such a fit for USC. They need to improve somehow. They just lost a Heisman winning, quarterback, but they've got to find a way to improve, specifically on defense. They did finally fire their defensive coordinator. Hopefully, we see an effect similar to what we saw at Ohio State over the past 2 years, where they get in Jim Knowles, and all of a sudden they can play some defense. But I think that you got to give this guy a little bit more time, and I'm not confident that he's going to pull it out and return USC to the promised land. But I also don't think that this year is the year to get rid of him. If the season plays out differently, I think that you could look at the 2025 season. If they win 5 games this year or less, I think you look at the 2025 season and say, all right, you got a really short leash, but we're not afraid to cut you mid-season. But I don't think that the 2024 season will dictate what any decisions made for Lincoln Riley personally.
Yeah. Well, it's always kind of a sign that we're getting close to something happening, and there's vibrations among the Earth's crust whenever a college football coach goes and replaces coordinators, right? And they're like, okay, we gotta. I'm blaming it on this guy. This guy's gone. Now we're good. That's essentially what the coordinator firing Sam Pittman, that's pictured on your screen, did the same thing this past year. Like we're gonna move on from these guys. These guys are what's weighing us down right now. I'm gonna get a better coaching staff in here, and it's gonna be better. But what if it ain't? And that's kind of where I'm at. Lincoln Riley, I've said it time and time again. It wasn't Alex Grinch. Alex Grinch was just a product of a football team that prioritizes offense over defense and special teams.
But he's
And
always been that, so I'll push
right.
back just a little bit
And
because
Grinch has always been there.
Grinch he's always been there with Lincoln Riley,
Yeah.
and they've never performed defensively. So I didn't like the fact that he brought him over in the first place.
Right.
Also, Arkansas fires Dan Enos. I didn't like the hire in the first place, but it was, if you go back in time, that was the choice that you almost had to make, given where the coaching carousel led. They lose their offensive coordinator late in the process, and now they've got to find somebody, and they're picking up scraps, and that's what happened. And I just think I don't think he was the guy that Sam Pittman wanted. But I think that Lincoln Riley made a poor decision in bringing over Alex Grinch.
Yeah. Well, we're going to see too, and if I'm not mistaken, I believe Alex Grinch is now with the Badgers in Wisconsin, and we're going to see where Alex Grinch, his career goes from here, and it's going to tell us a lot about the situation with Lincoln Riley, because I'm of the thought that it's a head coach problem. It's not a defensive coordinator problem. I didn't like Alex Grinch either. I'm with you 100%. I didn't want him to follow Lincoln Riley over. I wanted to figure out this experiment before getting to USC, but we're going to find out how good Alex Grinch does outside of a Lincoln Riley coached football team. and we're going to go from there. But you're right. It's those two have never been successful together defensively, and I think it's because Lincoln Riley is not of the thought process of complementary football. We saw USC this past spring go non-contact for multiple weeks in a row. They were playing 7-on-7, Mason. And then we get in the season and we're like, why can't this defense tackle nobody? They ain't tackled nobody all spring. They ain't tackled nobody all fall. You know, they've got to become more physical. Lincoln Riley, it's on him at this point. And if that defense doesn't perform better this year, you're right, they probably won't fire him. But he's got to be on the hot seat at that point, a very, very hot seat. And would not be surprised to if things don't go well this year. You're talking about 5-6 games, they win 5 or 6 games. I think if they get to December and they've won 5 or 6 games, he'll be going to the NFL. They won't have to fire him. He'll take off to the NFL. Billy Napier. Do you think he gets fired this year? I do.
Yes.
Yeah. During the season?
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I do too. The schedule's way too brutal, dude. It's way too brutal. There's no way he's going to be successful.
I think you got to start out 4-0 with this schedule. And that's beating Miami and that's beating Texas A&M, one non-con team. And I forget the last one. It's an SEC team, but anyways, that's where they're at, you know, and golly, I'd say for Miami and for Florida, those are must-win games for both teams, right?
Yep.
You're opening the year, Miami versus Florida. Miami's got to be thinking, Florida sucks, man. They hadn't been good in years. Florida's got to be thinking, Miami sucks, man. They hadn't been good in years. We got to win this game. You know, it's the battle of the state in some ways, and I think that Florida more so has to win, just given the fact that Billy Napier has not done well. I think Miami could probably get away with it, or more so. I think that Miami's head coach Mario Cristobal could get away with it. I think he's good this year, but I think Billy Napier is gone. I don't even think it's a hot seat. I think it's like a vacant seat, and there's just a note that has his name on it. Like he's not even in the seat anymore. Like they're just kind of waiting on things to play out.
Well, and he better watch his back, dude, because the Florida Gator administration will help him get out the door.
That's right.
In any way possible. You may see a Jeremy Pruitt at Tennessee type situation with this one before it's all said and done. And because they would love nothing more than to be able to fire Billy Napier with cause and not have to pay him.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about Florida, who has been in a perpetual state of replacing their college football coach over and over and over and over again, dude. So they don't want to pay all that money, man. I mean, there's no secret to it. And this schedule that you just brought up here is absolutely freaking brutal. You want to take us through that real quick?
Yeah, absolutely. So like I said, these first 4 games here, you've got Miami, Samford, Texas A&M, Mississippi State. You could even argue UCF, maybe the top 5, maybe those top 5. Like I really need to see Florida come out and go 4-1 out of these 5 games.
Like, with the washout that Florida's had at linebacker, that UCF game is going to be a son of a bitch.
Yep. And especially, I mean, they've got KJ Jefferson now at quarterback. So a good running quarterback. He's gonna be a handful. I don't see them beating Tennessee. I don't see them beating Kentucky this year. All right. So then that's the first 7 games. Last 5 games here. This is where it gets really brutal. You get a bye week in between Kentucky and Georgia. I think that's where we'll see the firing. I think that they're going to let him go after Kentucky, give the team a week with the new coach, say, hey, go out and fight Georgia tough, right? It'll be a huge win for the program if this isn't a 3-score game, you know. And it would be, even with Billy Napier, it'd be a huge win given where these programs are at right now.
Yeah.
But Georgia, Texas, LSU, Ole Miss, Florida State, the over under is at half a win in these last 5 games. So, I mean, I'm not, that's not like a Vegas total. That's my over under, but I just don't see them getting out of that gauntlet there. So the real key is going to be those first 5 games. If you could split Tennessee and Kentucky, and you've got 5 wins heading into the Georgia game and the cocktail party, maybe you could sneak in a win against Florida State in a rivalry game at the end of the year, and you're going bowling. That could be a scenario where Billy Napier keeps his job. Florida's got to know that this is a really tough schedule. They're going to be possibly breaking in a brand new quarterback in DJ Lagway with this schedule. Maybe there's, as I'm kind of playing through it, maybe there's a scenario where they do, kind of win and keep Billy Napier. But at the same time, it's really tough. If the first part of their schedule was really tough and the back half was easy, I could see it happening more so. But the fact that the front half is the easier part, but what I'm saying is the new quarterback, if DJ Lagway ends up winning the job, he would be more polished towards the end of the year than he would at the beginning of the year, where he's going to be going through his freshman mistakes. So maybe a little bit tougher to get those first 5 wins out of the way. But I mean, realistically, there's a chance that Florida wins 3 games in this season. I mean, they've got 2 guarantees in Samford and Mississippi State, in my opinion. They could lose every other game, realistically.
Yeah.
I mean,
yeah,
that's the way I see it. And Billy Napier, I think that Billy Napier will be gone. If I were to put money on it, that's where I would go.
Yeah, I think so too. If they can go bowling next year, that would be incredible. That would be a big. I mean, they haven't went to a bowl game in what? It's been 3 years in a row. They haven't won 6 games. So that just in general would be a big deal, but especially considering the scheduling massacre that is the Florida Gators 24 and 25 season, that would be a really big deal. Let's talk about the Arkansas head ball coach, Mr. Fire Up That Jukebox. What do you think needs to happen for him to be able to retain his job? You kind of talked about Billy Napier, and I kind of think the same thing about Sam Pittman at Arkansas. I think if Sam Pittman can get off to a hot start, then I think that he can quiet down a lot. And if they can make a bowl game and start off the season hot, then I think they got a pretty good shot to keep Sam Pittman and retain him. It's a different than a Florida situation, and the fact that the Florida Gators don't like Billy Napier. Like, most Florida fans don't like him. I don't know what the deal is. I think Billy Napier's a really nice guy. I don't think there's much to dislike about Billy Napier other than the fact that he may be in over his head. I think, but with that being said, the Florida Gator fans, I don't think are in love with Billy Napier. Arkansas fans absolutely love Sam Pittman. To know Sam Pittman is to love him, okay? We've talked about it on the show before. He's that guy in the neighborhood whose garage is always open, and you head over there with your broken lawnmower deck, and you two end up drinking 6 beers and fixing your lawnmower together, right? Yep. That's Sam Pittman. Everybody loves the guy. So if he can get off to a hot start in 24 and 25, do you think he can keep his job?
I do, and I think he will, actually. I'm pulling the schedule up here. It's pretty favorable. For once, Arkansas has a decent schedule that's like pretty manageable, right?
First time I can remember.
It's been a while. No Alabama, no Georgia on this schedule. They start off with the University of Arkansas Pine Bluff Golden Lions, with a beautiful mascot there. I love that logo. Lion with a beautiful mane there, hair that I just wish I had. And then they got Oklahoma State. That's actually a really fun game. I'm super excited about that matchup. I think that could be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, that's cool.
It's a tough one for Arkansas for sure. Definitely not a for sure win in my opinion. But then you've got UAB, who is a pretty tough team, but I think Arkansas should be able to pull that off. Auburn, who is just this dark horse of a team in the SEC this year. Not really sure what's going to happen with them, but I don't look at Auburn and say that this isn't winnable for Arkansas. This is a winnable game for them. They could get into it'd be a pretty big win for me. I'm pretty high on Auburn this year. Texas A&M, we don't know what they're gonna do this year. I expect them to be a really tough team for Arkansas. I think it would be a tough matchup for them. And then you got Tennessee, who should be able to control this game and should be able to win against Arkansas, but still a game that Arkansas could pull off. LSU, I think that they're going to be a really tough out for Arkansas, but then you got Mississippi State, who Arkansas could beat, right? Then Ole Miss, Texas, Missouri, I think are losses. Louisiana Tech should be a win. So I'm counting, and I see 2.5, 3, 4, 5.5 wins on this schedule. I mean, if they can over on that and go bowling, do you think that's gonna keep that's gonna allow Sam Pittman to keep his job?
Yeah, I do. 6 wins has got to be that's got to be the goal for a team
Right.
like Arkansas. I mean, look, these lower tier teams, and I say lower tier, I mean this is an SEC program we're talking about here. So I speak in championship levels, right? This is a lower level team. The goal has to be to win 9 or 10 games once every 3 or 4 years. That's got to be the goal. And then the rest of the time you need to be trying to make a bowl game. That seems reasonable to me. I don't. Now, Arkansas has got money. People think that Arkansas Razorbacks don't have money. Dude, they got 2 stadiums. Okay, they got money. Like the Walmart family contributes there. The Jerry Jones family contributes there and sends all their grandkids there. I mean, they got money, bro. They got it. So Sam Pittman, and I hate to just maybe he's too old to get this team fired up in the new college football era of NIL and all that stuff. I don't know.
Well,
Like I
maybe not
said,
the team, but the program, right?
Right. And
As a
that's what I
whole,
mean.
the
Yeah.
boosters, the AD,
Yeah, the kids obviously aren't going to contribute. You've got to you
Yeah.
got to channel the Jerry Jones money. You got to channel the Walton money,
Mhm.
like into the right funnels. And Arkansas fans are diehard as anybody, dude. I swear to God, Arkansas and South Carolina Gamecock fans, dude, every year's their year. Like, we got it this year. Like, it's in the bag. We got it. We're going to be better. We're going to win 8 games. We're going to win 9 games. We're going to win 10 games. South Carolina fans will hit you with, we're beating Georgia,
Yeah.
Delusional? Maybe. Fanatic? Absolutely.
Yep.
Okay. So he's got to rally the war cry of the Woo Pig Suey. Okay. Otherwise, he may be in trouble. Right? I mean, you got to get the money going into the right coffers and in the right funnels, dude, in today's college football. And I don't know if Sam Pittman's cut out to do that. A couple other guys that we wanted to talk about. You've got the Baylor coach, Dave Aranda. Gosh, it's hard to believe. It was just like 3 years ago he won the Big 12, right? Maybe the Big 12 being easier is going to help the Baylor Bears, be able to sustain a little bit more success. You've got Texas and Oklahoma, obviously, going over to the SEC in 24-25. Does that clear a path for the Baylor Bears? Man, they were bad last year. Man, real bad. Real bad. Do you think that they can take a step, or do you think Dave Aranda's in trouble? Man, I refuse to think that Dave Aranda is not a good head coach. There's something in me that makes me really like that guy. And I can't figure out why he can't get it going in a place like Texas where the recruiting grounds are so fertile. at Baylor, where there has been success, even post, you know, turmoil of all the Briles situation that happened there. They've been successful since then. So, what is it going to take for the Baylor Bears to get it going and for Dave Aranda to keep his job? What do you think?
I think that there's a lack of motivation in some ways, and not saying that Dave Aranda doesn't want to win, doesn't care to win, but on the program, from a program perspective, there's been some disconnect between Dave Aranda and the administration there that I don't think really gets aired out very much. I don't know that he has the backing that he thought he would going into that program, and I think that that has a lot to do with it. You know, he
Well, and
wins
it's
the
a
Big
really
12.
small school too.
It is,
Like
but
really
I've
small.
actually been on campus there at Baylor, and it's a nice campus. It's a pretty
Yeah.
big stadium. Really nice town. Waco's kind of right in between Austin and Dallas. Pretty favorable area to be in, and you know, it's I liked being out there. It was really nice. And so from a recruiting perspective, I think like there's a lot to like as a recruit over in Waco. But I just think that maybe Dave Aranda wins the Big 12 and he thinks, all right, now here comes the backing and here comes the resources and all the money, and it just never showed up.
Yeah.
And so maybe I don't know. It's a little bit of a gut read on the situation. There were some things that came out before last season, and I don't remember what exactly it was that gave me that thought, but that's kind of been the gut reaction that I've had ever since then.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I could see that. I could see that. And Dave Aranda is not going to be a guy that's going to air out his dirty laundry, dude. Like
Mhm.
you're not going to hear about it. I mean, this guy is so he plays everything so close to the vest, and he he's a hard ass. I mean, he's a hard ass coach, man. And in some ways, I think maybe he just needs to lighten up a little bit. Maybe have a little more fun with it. Even whenever I've seen him after a win be like, "Yeah, but it's ridiculous we had to win that way," you know. And I think he comes from a place like LSU where it's like we don't want to just win. We want to dominate. We want to be dominant. And I don't know if that's ever going to be the case at Baylor. I don't know if you know. And I understand he wants to have a tough team, but at the same time, um, I think that there needs to be a little bit of recognition about where you're at. And if he's not successful at Baylor, I don't know. He's going to have to go back to the recruiter route in the Big Ten or SEC, which he was a really good, or excuse me, I meant to say coordinator, not recruiter. He's going to
Mhm.
have to go back to the coordinator role in the Big Ten or the SEC, which he was very good at, very good defensive coordinator, um, and then go for a head coaching job from there. But you got to be successful where you're at. You got to win where you're at before you're going to be able to be given a bigger chance, I think. What you got something pulled up for us there?
Yeah. So real quick, so I guess we can get off the topic of Dave Aranda. So this is actually Ohio State's schedule. So for me, somebody that I've included on the hot seat is Ryan Day, and I know it may be a little bit surprising um, for him to be on the hot list here, but to me, I there we go. Let's see. All right, so here's the schedule for Ohio State coming up. We'll scroll up just a little bit here so you can see the top. They're starting with Akron there, but to me, this is a favorable schedule. But so why is Ryan Day on the hot seat? In my opinion, it's the fact that they have gone out. The Ohio State Buckeyes have gone out and got him everything that he wants in a roster and then some. Right. Couple that with the fact that Michigan is not the team that they have been, right? And on top of that, you've got a favorable regular season schedule. Now, Ohio State can go 12-0 in the regular season, and that's still not going to be enough, right? They still have to win the Big Ten, and they still need to go to the freaking national championship. I think that's what Michigan, or excuse me, that's what Ohio State fans are waiting for, is for Ohio State to be in the national championship at the very least. If you go to the national championship and you lose to Georgia, that's fine, right? Georgia's a really good program. As long as they're competitive, I don't think that Ohio State fans are going to be so upset that they just, get rid of Ryan Day. But if it's any other program, they might just do it. Ross Bjork has come in and really got the boosters and the collective on board with paying these players a bunch of money, getting them into the program, and they've just become a super funnel for talent. It's been really impressive to see this offseason. They've really come on board, in particular with Caleb Downs and Julian Sayin, but also Quinshon Judkins before that. This program is becoming a powerhouse in the NIL game, unlike anything we've seen. Right. So Ryan Day's got to win, and I think that he kind of put himself into this corner and set his own seat on fire in a lot of ways. And I think he's fine with that. I don't think that this is unwanted attention in any way for Ryan Day, but I also think that this is college football. This is Ohio State, and Ryan Day is going to have to do something with this program, or he's going to be gone in the next year or two.
That's a very interesting hot seat pick there, and I completely agree with you because these Ohio State fans have been restless after the last 3 years of losing to Michigan and stayed the playoff. They've made the playoffs, I think, just about more than anybody other than Alabama in the college football playoff era. Just can't win the big one. I mean, that's really what it boils down to, and in most cases, can't get to the big one. So, the fact that he comes in and hires Bill O'Brien, Ryan Day has always been a guy who wanted to call the plays. He was an offensive mind, and he's having to hand that off. And I don't think it's because he necessarily wants to. I think it's because he kind of has to. And I agree with you. If it doesn't work out this year, there's going to be some big questions because there's been a large amount of money put on it. That's what I worry about with these NIL things. I think it can absolutely help you out. In Ryan Day's case, the overall talent level has risen at Ohio State from last year to this coming up year, in my opinion. We'll see how it translates on the field. But if it doesn't work out and there's millions of dollars spent and it still doesn't work out, there's going to be questions to be asked. And so I think that rightfully so, he can be put on this list. I think another one to talk about, and we're not gonna really go into it. Clark Lee at Vanderbilt. I think this is kind of I don't even know how you're supposed to measure Vanderbilt. You talk about relegating a team, they need to be relegated to something else, dude. Vanderbilt does not need to be in the SEC, but they're not going anywhere. They're everybody's little cousin or whatever. That everybody, they beat the hell out of at Thanksgiving every year. And that's just kind of what they are. And I don't think that I wouldn't get rid of Clark Lee, I guess is what I'm saying. I don't think that there's any reason to do that. You got a guy who I think is invested in helping Vanderbilt win, and I don't think you're going to do much better than Clark Lee. But that's just my opinion. Who you got? Anybody else you want to throw on this list? I guarantee I'm forgetting somebody.
Yeah, there certainly are more, but I think that this is
Boston College's coach was on there, but now he's took off to the NFL.
Yeah.
And that's what's caused Bill O'Brien to probably be taking that job over. So you to kind of tie in what you're talking about, that Ohio State thing. Does this give them Ohio State an excuse? If Bill O'Brien leaves out here in the 11th hour and they're stuck without an offensive coordinator again, does that create kind of a scapegoat for Ryan Day in a way? I think it kind of does.
But he's also the guy who's been calling plays
right
the whole time,
Right.
So, but that's what they're trying to get away from. I think that he's saying, man, this is too much. It's hard to put together a game plan, on offense and be the only one doing it, right? And also be the CEO. That's a lot on a coach. So I think he's trying to say, like, hey, let me take a step back. I'll peek in while you're drawing it up. I'll go over it with you, but I also got to take care of the guys. So
yeah. Hey, being a CEO ain't no easy thing, and he's over a multi 10 times over again multi-millionaire corporation is what this is. And he's the head man, and not being able to retain Bill O'Brien is, even if it's not really his fault, it's still his fault. It's like owning a business and you got a trucking company, and it's like, well, diesel prices went up to $6 a gallon. There's nothing I could do. Shareholders don't want to hear that. They don't care. It's like, okay, but you're the man. We paid you all this money. We gave you everything you wanted. So I just wonder if there's going to be a lack of patience amongst Ohio State fans if Bill O'Brien does decide to take that Boston College job, which it looks like he is. Then are you stuck again not having an offensive coordinator to hand that stuff off to? That's going to be something interesting to watch as spring is coming up very, very, very soon.
Yep.
So Ohio State's been known to go do their spring practices and stuff down in Florida and stuff like that. They tend to start those earlier. So we are not far away from spring practice. You got to have your offensive coordinator in there. And they kind of waited till the last minute to get Bill O'Brien. So I think there might be some fuss about that. Why did we wait till the 11th hour to get a coach, and then we lost him in the 11th and a half hour? So going to be very, very interesting to see this spring. We got a lot to watch, and we hope that you will come and watch it with us at the First and Long College Football Show. Please make sure you're subscribed. We've got stuff coming out. We're going to be having videos coming out every day, shorts, all that stuff. Please like our videos. Help us out. Those of you that are subscribed and watching all the time, we thank you so much. Hit that thumbs up button for us. It takes little to no effort and helps us out tremendously with the YouTube algorithm. That's it for the show today, Mason. You got anything else you want to add, bud?
I think that's it. Appreciate y'all watching. Y'all have a good night.
Crispy hour and a half. Thank you all so much for watching and signing out for First and Long College Football Show. Marcus and Mason, have a good night.